Neurofenix is, again, a startup company. We've UK based, been basically running for about the past 4 years, since about 2016. Just came into the US market, the beginning of like last year of 19, or excuse me, 20. And Dan came to the US to help kind of get the company started. He came from the UK. He lives in San Francisco. And then, so what we've been doing this past year, for the most part, is really just getting the company situated and established in the U.S. market. And there's a lot to it. Obviously, FDA and just getting everything kind of all working and running. It's just a long, big puzzle, right, that we just put together. I started in like the very beginning of October, and I came from this same industry, the rehab technology industry. My background as a therapist really plays well into this. I really believe in technology. I think the therapy world is just rife with openings for areas where technology could be implemented for drastic change, both in the clinic but also for people to use at home. And that was really the driving force for me to be here, at the company level, and to really, get a company like this started. The two co-founders of the company are two guys that met in college, kind of like you, Chris, and you, Justin, where they met at college. They got inspired by, technology and one another. One was a scientist for, studying the brain, mechanical engineering, and another one was, mechanical engineering. And basically, they just got together. They came up with this idea of being able to solve this problem, because in the UK, one of the biggest issues is patients just don't get enough time in therapy. So they come out of acute care, they go to therapy at the NHS typically, and then they're sent home quite rapidly. And then once they're home, they're basically out of the system and they're on their own to kind of fend for themselves and to really take care of their own care. And so that was really the impetus behind creating the neural platform that we have, but also the Neuroball. And that's what Dan will get into. And so I won't talk anymore, but just wanted to give you guys a little background about, who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, and literally the mission that we're trying to kind of achieve, So Dan, why don't you take it away? Tell them a little bit about yourself and then just show them the Neuroball.
Well, thanks, Chris. Pleasure to meet you guys. Yes, so I am a physiotherapist trained in the UK, and I met Neurofenix when they came to Brunel University, where I was working to assess the device. And I did 2 clinical studies on the Neuroball and the Neurofenix intervention. And after those projects came to an end, I then joined Neurofenix to help bring what I thought was a fantastic product out into the market. And since then, I've trained over 300 therapists how to use the Neuroball, and brought it all over the UK, met with loads of stroke survivors, people with spinal cord injury, and helped them get the most out of the Neuroball for their recovery. So really excited to be here. What sort of research are you guys doing, Justin and Chris? You're into patient-centered outcomes. Is there any
so we don't
specific...
look, at least in my personal research, I don't know about Chris, but we don't look more at the treatment, but we look more at looking at the patient side and their perspective of treatment, their perspective of care, looking both also on a clinical side. So I like looking at how a patient feels in that rehabilitation. So right now, I'm redefining what stroke is and some of those guidelines for young adults between ages of 18 and 65, because a lot of the data we thought was not out of style, but it was mostly focused on people above age of 65. So we're looking at redefining that. I think Chris.
Yep, I'm currently part of 2 studies. The first being clinicians' perspectives regarding mild stroke, and the second being the needs, wants, and barriers of stroke survivors, specifically looking at minority stroke victims.
All right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, those are great. So that is, I actually started my dissertation was on assistive technology and stroke, and you'll be probably pleased to hear that the study that we did was actually a mixed methods one, and very much involved how they felt and really taking into account the stroke survivor's perspective of the Neuroball.
I think that's super important. I think Kelly also stressed this in one of our meetings, that a lot of the research that's out there doesn't always have the perspective of a stroke victim or a stroke survivor, excuse me. And that's something we wanted to try to change with this partnership, right? So with Emory kind of coming along, we're trying to also focus some of our research on looking at what patients need, and that's something we're trying to angle out.
Started just like that. So it's very quick to get going, and I'll show you how quick it is to get going. But yeah, so this can also be, because it's so small and it's got such a tiny profile, you can also use it in combination therapies. So let's say you have a mobile arm support. There's a lot of evidence for de-weighting the arm to get arm support. There's a lot of evidence for de-weighting the arm to get high quality movement, and to do that repetitively. And as well, you can use it with, let's say, FES, and you can stimulate into extension to, again, fight spastic finger and long wrist flexors. All right, so I will share the screen and we can go through the tablet.
So just a note, when, as the Neuroball is designed really so that, as Dan stated, it's meant to just be taken out of the box, and to be able to just connect it to a Wi-Fi, double click the app, and simply pull this up. So it could happen very quickly. So Kelly, even if like somebody that's not really clinical, or knows like technology too well, computers, the instructions are very easy. It's really meant to be taken out of the box and really managed by somebody even with very low tech skills. So it's designed for that purpose, and you'll see like everything it's an easy touch screen, and the hardest thing anybody would have to do is know how to connect Wi-Fi to the tablet. That's really the most challenging thing, really, out of all of it. It's and that's obviously very easy to do. So
and we're happy we're available to walk people through this software. So on the left side you have all of your activities and games and videos that provide that engagement. And then on the right you have a personal introduction at the start. You have today's progress. So you have a day streak, again, to foster that engagement, to try and build that habit of exercising and self-care. And then you have a leaderboard, which is, again, a little bit of playful competition to try and get people really engaged in their therapy. And as well, you have the repetitions that you've done and the minutes that you've played at the bottom if you want to keep track. And you have a way to check your weekly progress. So this is now going to show you how many repetitions I've done. I've been very bad this week and not used it at all. But there's a top player that has averaged 4,906 repetitions per day. So someone is out there really crushing their Neuroball therapy. And again, so this is all designed to try and get that engagement, kind of like social media. We're trying to build that engagement that is really enjoyable and keeps people exercising, keeps people doing positive habits rather than swiping in social media. This is trying to be a positive habit of training and recovery.
And to note, like, leaderboard and the progress reports. So if you are, somebody using the Neuroball, I think it's just one of the things that we've seen and learned from this is that people are just, by nature, humans are fairly competitive, or at least they like to be a little bit. And I think the leaderboard allows people to kind of see where they stand. And really this is kind of a little bit of the psychology behind the device. And like Dan said, social media, it's really to keep people's attention, right? So if you see yourself up on the leaderboard and you're ranked number 17th or whatever, if you put a little more work in, your ranking obviously could go up and will go up. And that's what it's really meant to do. It's really to kind of make you feel like you're part of a community. I think, obviously stroke support group would be similar to that in a way, but that's really what this is more of a digital form and a technology, is to kind of make you feel like you're part of even a small community of people that are using it. So.
How would you determine like a protocol in terms of number of is there a number? Let's say someone, a stroke survivor, would you determine a set number of repetitions per week or a goal, or should this be in partnership with their clinicians, or do you just want to max it? Just to max out the leaderboard?
Yeah, great question. So yes, what we've done is we've sort of set this at two numbers. So there's a the current guidelines in the UK are to do 45 minutes a day of each different therapy. And so that's why we've got 45 minutes a day here of Neuroball therapy, so that, we can fit in with the stroke guidelines. But, the current evidence is quite simple, that, the more high quality, high, dose and the high intensity that you have, the more you'll recover. There's, when I hear that, there's this one study that comes to mind, the Queen Square Upper Limb clinic in the UK in London. They have a clinic that does 90 hours over 3 weeks. So it's 6 hours a day. It's a full-time job to do, upper extremity movements over and over again. The intensity and the dose, the 90 hours, and they were able to have some fantastic results, even in chronic severe stroke survivors. So it's really, I'd say you do want to push the most, but again, not every stroke is the same, and not everyone is at the same stage of their journey, their recovery journey. So it really depends on the person, but we try to encourage to get the most out of that person. There's a lot of clinicians that say fatigue, and they allow their patients to not really engage. But then I think the best way is to work with the stroke survivor to encourage them to really, really push themselves, and like in this Queen Square Upper Limb clinic, really get the most out of it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I will now show you how quickly it is to get started. So I get out the Neuroball, I've got my tablet, I've got a little tablet stand to sit there. And so now I want to play a game. So the first thing I'll do is I'll click on the game that I want to play. You'll see the different movements on the right side of the tile that is trained in that game. So you have pronation and supination in this one, as well as grasping and release. So I'm gonna, I read the little brief introduction and I want to start playing. And now each time you're here, it will show you how to put the Neuroball on. So again, we've really designed this to be used independently by stroke survivors at home, because that is what they wanted. They really ranked, the highest that they ranked was they wanted something to do independently by themselves, because, the clinician isn't going to be there all the time. And this is how you put it on. It's in the base, again, to secure it. But you can also take it out of the base and put it on in your lap, whatever works. Some people twist it forward like this. So let's say with one hand, I have a little bit of spasticity in my wrist and fingers, so that now instead of being in a tight ball when my wrist is extended, I'm able to relax at the wrist and my fingers are able to extend a little more. So I can then, drop them down into the ball and then secure it. So there are many different ways to put it on. We have just gone with the standard, put the lock in, and you can extend your fingers one by one to put it in and secure it. But you can also do the other way as well. Again, one-handed strap. We have the new COVID-resistant straps that are even easier to put on. And voila, I'm in. So it tells you exactly how to do that each time, so you don't have to remember, or if you're using it with a new patient, you can leave it with them on this page to get set up. And voila, it sits there and then threads through, and I'm going to take the Neuroball out, and we have the locking mechanism at the bottom that I'm going to take off. And now we're ready to go. So we have the on button at the bottom, and it's on because it glows. It is on, and it is tap to connect, and we're connected. Simple as that. And now this is where the Neuroball adapts to a stroke survivor's movements. So this is where you program it programs all the games to, adapts all the games so that you can be successful with whatever movement you have. And that is, I think, one of the best parts of the Neuroball. As well, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but you can squeeze inside the Neuroball and it picks that up. I'll show you that in just a second. So I'm going to get in a nice position and hit next. And you can see that even with this little movement that I'm doing now, I can be successful in a game, even with that. So you can see the movement, the glowing right triangle. You can see that movement is tracked very nicely. The green being my maximum, where I am at that moment in time. So you can see moving back and forth, it follows my movements. So I'll hit redo and I'll just do a little bit and I'll hit next. I'll go into pronation or palm down, and that's all I need to do to be successful. And let's say I want to roll forward, I can assist with my other hand if I wanted to. Some people are at that stage, other people will be able to do that independently. And that have wrist movement, you can still train, finger flexion and release. You can also train, your elbow movement and your shoulder. I can passively push it down and get as much movement as I want out of that you can squeeze. So you can see right there that it is slowly moving in. The more I squeeze, and I'll just redo that. So let's say I don't have a lot of finger movement. I can do this, and that is already picked up by the Neuroball. And I can be successful in a game like that. So it's highly sensitive and adapts to your movement to continuously challenge you as you progress. Let's say I get more and more movement back. I can, it will bring me all the way into that movement and then back. All right, now it's adapted to I'm going to turn that down a bit. Okay, so you have music that's really fun and engaging and is enjoyable. So now instead of doing repetitive pronation and supination movements or turning my hand up and down, I am saving the world from alien attack. Today is to save the world. Good luck, Captain. Is it out of the base? You can pick it up and use it with your other hand or support it with your other hand. And you can also use it alone. To really challenge that, you can, put it, straight out. You can rest it on something. You can play with it in your lap, like that. And so this, I'd say, is a great game for someone with very little movement. In one of my first demonstrations, when we were, back in the time, BC, before COVID, you could actually. I actually went to an inpatient rehab facility in the UK, and we had a lady that wanted to try it out. She came up. She had almost no movement in her arm. She was very dense, and she had muscle flickers in her forearm. And I was like, maybe we can get something out of that. So we tried a different game, rolling forwards and backwards, and she wasn't able to do that because that requires quite a bit of movement. But then we got her in this game and put 2 pillows under her forearm so she was fully supported. And in the base, it's almost frictionless so that she was able to, with her muscle flickers, move back and forth. And this is a lady who was engaged in her rehab. She thought she had completely lost the use of her arm. She thought it was useless, and now she's using it to save the world. It was a game changer, excuse the pun. So by the end of the session, we had to pull her out of it, and she then was able to use it for the next few weeks at the inpatient rehab facility. And there are many different things that pop up, like shields. You have super bombs. So if you get one of these power ups, you can squeeze and it'll blow up everything. Squeeze and release, and it'll blow up everything on the screen. So there's quite a bit to it. And as I showed you before, the space shooter, you have 20 levels to choose from. So you have 20 levels to go through. While I was doing the second Neurofenix study, when they used it for 7 weeks at home, I went to pick up the Neuroball, and one gentleman was like, "Oh, you're not taking it, are you?" I was just about to beat level 20. So it had some really, and he exercised for 42 hours over those 7 weeks. So he had some really phenomenal engagement with it. And this is by himself. We just trained him how to use it, and then he went off by himself and used it for 42 hours. So he really, really enjoyed it. All right, so that's one game, and let's say I want to, you know, I've done my wrist. My wrist is feeling nice and relaxed, and let's do something a little bit more involved. And so you can recalibrate each time, but because I was in a nice upright position, I'm going to skip this, and I'm going to play Scuba Diver. So this is currently adapting to my movement again. I'll just jump into medium. So in Scuba Diver, I'm swimming along the seafloor, collecting bubbles to keep my oxygen up, and I'm searching for buried treasure. So I'm rolling forwards to dive down, collecting power-ups, and rolling back to go up. But it's actually more intuitive if I pick it up and I'm now pointing down to go down, and then pointing up to go up. So you can really focus on wrist movement here if that's what you want to do. Or if you wanted to focus on elbow movement, I could sit up properly in a nice position, point down to go down, and up to go up. Down to go down, and up to go up. And this will require a lot of control in this midpoint, because you're trying to control yourself to pick this bubble up. So you're really controlling it in that area. Maybe not doing something extreme as repetitions, but you're actually focusing on controlling the arm. And as well, you can do full shoulder movement if you wanted to. Again, you have to have that control, slow and steady, holding it in that midpoint and moving along. And then after 200 points, treasure chests come up, and you open those by doing, again, another, you're bringing a key from one side to open up that lock, and then you hold the other way, and it brings the key all the way on the other side to open that lock. So a lot of different engagement, and those give you loads of points, and you know, you're trying to beat your high score. And so that is Scuba Diver. That's how you train a more proximal training. And you have pufferfish, again, which knock down your you know, just a piece of engagement, which knock down your oxygen, keep you on your toes as you're getting those bubbles. All right. And the last game I'll go through is a little more on the grasping and release, and that is Holiday Dash. Again, I'll skip because I calibrated it to a little bit of movement, and I'll show you that. And so in this game, I'm jogging along, and me and 4 friends are jogging along the beach, and I squeeze and release, and they're jumping. So I need to release before I squeeze again. Squeeze, they jump, I release, I can squeeze again. And so I'm jumping over things like rivers, pits, and I'm jumping up to collect items. I get points like watermelon, sunscreen, pina coladas, your jogging essentials. Voila. And so, I've lost a few there. They've just stopped for a rest. And so in this game, you can, there are many different ways to practice, to play this game. You can do it with one finger in particular, if you like. You can just squeeze your middle finger. If you want to really train one finger, you can go one by one. So let's say I want to do thumb. I'm going to squeeze in on the thumb. And then I can go one by one across. If I just made it, okay. And there are other ways to make this, you know, challenge yourself during this game. Let's say I put a thing out a little bit further, and every time I want to reach out and squeeze. So now you're training reaching, tapping, squeezing, and pulling back. So like a very functional reach, grasp, pull back, push, reach, grasp, pull back. So there are many different ways to really get engaged and to challenge yourself using these games and using the Neuroball, as well as, let's say, lifting up as high as I can and squeezing every time. So that'll get a full upper body workout. All right. Any questions so far?
It's fascinating.
And so we also wanted to tie the exercise that you're doing in the Neuroball to functional things, because we want, as much as we want you to be the best Neuroball, expert, we also want you to be able to do things like movement that you did left to right can help you open a doorknob. So this particular movement, opening a doorknob, tying them together to have somebody think, maybe I should practice with this, and then try practice with the doorknob later on. Brilliant. So, and you can see I'm on a 1-day streak, and then I've done 137 repetitions, and I've played 4 minutes of active time. So that's 4 minutes I've actively been in a game, whereas it's been a little bit longer because I've been explaining things, and we've been going between games. So the typical upper extremity session, there's some observational data in a clinic or in a inpatient rehab facility. The typical upper extremity session contains about 32 movement repetitions and 12 functional task practices. So I've already done 137 repetitions. If you compare the two, you can see that you really get the intensity when you're using this. And so yeah, that we have a bunch of different games to keep the engagement, and we also have videos that are out there that you can exercise along with me, or you can we might get one of Cliff in there soon. There's some therapists in the UK that have also used the Neuroball with a patient and recorded that, and we like to demonstrate that as well. Excellent.
Cool. It's pretty easy. I mean, once you grasp it, we could do the training on these devices literally in like no time. So we offer trainings with the device, but like I said, most people can pick it out of the box and figure it out. The refinement of the movement, the therapist intervention is important because the therapist can teach the movement quality to be better, and to work on obviously that aspect of it. But for someone that's non-clinical, they could take this out of the box and begin to do these general exercises that Dan's showing. So that's really the intention here. And you guys know as you're budding researchers and soon to be, researchers out in the field, like really with motor recovery, it's simple. It's really about the repetitions, the maximum repetitions, and the dose, and then of course intensity, and keeping people engaged. So that for us, this is no magic bullet. It's really quite simple. But the simplicity of it is it's by design. And so that's really what this is about. So yeah, we do appreciate you guys being able, obviously taking the time to let us, show you this. It's a lot of information, obviously, and we could always, my plan is obviously I want to be able to stay connected with you guys. And if there's any questions that you have after this meeting, we will be thrilled to help answer any of it. Our mission here is to try to educate as many people as we can about us and the technology, and this is just one piece of it. So our mission is not to just stay with the upper extremity, but to be a lower extremity platform technology for cognition, speech and language, and that's really where we're trying to go, so that people who can use this in the clinic but can also do stuff at home and do it safely, easily, and keep people engaged. So